I find that with my art, it doesn't seem to fit into very many categories. In Australia, it tends to be, either you're doing Aboriginal art, abstract art, or very traditional art. If you do anything outside that, usually the art world just doesn't seem to be able to cope with that, and it's very hard to find exhibition spaces and things like that. So, how do you sort of find that with yours, do you?
I find I get a lot of criticism of my art, and also I get a lot of interest in my art too. And probably the worst thing about art is to be ignored in what you're doing.
That's right.
So, and we were talking before about the Mona Lisa phenomenon, how there's some people that are very traditional about the Mona Lisa and how it should be painted or looked at. And you told me about your Mona Lisa painting that caused a bit of a stir. And I mentioned too about my Mona Lisa painting, where I called it Mona Comes to Tassie, and she's actually sitting there holding a Tassie tiger. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's an artist, a very traditional painter, and he'd done some Mona Lisa paintings, and he was so detailed and so regimental that he'd go down to one hair on his paintbrush to get all the different detail in. And he's also looked at my work in the past and been horrified seeing signs that I've actually used my fingers in the paintings.
Yeah.
And he knew I was doing a Mona Lisa painting, and I told him about your painting with the Mona Lisa and the Tassie Devil, and he sounded quite a bit horrified, and he said, "Can I come over and see your Mona Lisa painting?" And I was a bit worried because I was a bit worried he might have a heart attack or something. And so I didn't ever show it to him, because that's the frame, the mind frame of some people is that they can't see art in any other way apart from how it would be if you photographed it.
Yeah, I find a lot of people just try to paint like a photo, and they are, I just call them photocopiers. They're just full colour photocopiers, and all they're doing is just rendering, and it seems to not have any heart or soul. It doesn't seem to have any life in it. There's no story there, and it's art reproduction, because the original photograph was actually, that was the art, and they're just reproducing it, and well, it's skillful, but it has a big so what factor.
Yeah. Well, to me, Bill, when you talk about photographic art, reproduction of a photograph, to me that's already recreating something that's already been done.
That's right.
And you can go anywhere in Australia and get a postcard of a kangaroo on it, and it could have that town's name on it. So it's basically the same thing, and I think it's the same with art too. You could paint a tree exactly how it is any amount of times, and it's still the same thing. But I think to actually create something different is more important, to also capture that scene in time, but in your own imagination, portrayed on canvas, basically.
I suppose that's where I'm sort of coming from. I've got wombats here. There's wombats in the painting there. I've hand raised 12 wombats. I've looked after dozens of wombats at the zoo. I just have so much experience in sort of really trying to paint something that I have experienced rather than something that's just from a photo. Well, I could get a photograph of any sort of animal that I've never seen before. If it's a photo, I could copy it, anyone could. But to actually experience it, or even just to imagine a story around it, I think is much more interesting. It's much more exciting. And I've always found that book illustrations, like wildlife book illustrations, are much more exciting than just a photograph. Photographs, bam, there it is. A book illustration leaves things open for your imagination to continue to make up stories of what could be there.
Yeah, I can sort of agree with that too, Bill. I think when you actually create something yourself, it becomes an extension of you, because often you don't really overplan it, and it becomes an involuntary type painting, where often you never know how it's going to finish until it is finished, and sometimes when it is finished you still think it's not finished, because it becomes an extension of your character and your imagination, and it becomes part of you, almost like a child that you've reared. So art can become an extension of yourself, and a bit like music too. A song that often a good song will just come from feeling, and it is created uniquely from a person's imagination or their feelings. And I think paintings are the same. And something that's created naturally from oneself is not going to be regimental and run-of-the-mill type traditional painting. And it often reflect on the person that painted it.